Welcome to the Pinelander Podcast, the official podcast of Pineland, broadcasting to you from an undisclosed location deep inside Pineland, where we discuss faith, family, finances, firearms, freedom, food, and everything else in between, with those who believe in living free and living out the values that made this country free. Welcome to the Pinelander Podcast. My name is Paul LaFavor. I'm here with my ranger buddy, Mike Blackburn. And today, we brought into the G-Base this first podcast of the new year. This is Friday, the 6th of January, 2023. We brought in our columnist, Larry Schmidt, and what are we calling him? I think a park ranger, Pete Moss. So, guys, welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for having me again.
Because this is our first podcast of the new year, I just wanted to start off with a quote by Alexis de Tocqueville. You guys have probably heard of him before, but Alexis de Tocqueville, he wrote Democracy in America. He was a Frenchman. He visited, it's okay to be French, right? He visited the U.S. Back in before the Civil War. Anyway, he went around and he got a really good look at America. And what he said, I think, is always worth bears mention. He said, America is good because America is great because she's good. And I think, America is great. I think it's always important to stop and remember that. The reason why we're great is because we're good. We do things the right way. This is an experiment that's, I think, 247 years now in the making. It's a good experiment. And the Founding Fathers knew what they were doing when they gave us our founding documents, and they backed that up with courage and determination. We won our freedom. Now, of course, we haven't been perfect, but America is great because she's good. And I think that's important to remember because of all the crazy things that go on in the world. And so I'm thankful that I was born and raised in this country. And so I was thinking about a good way to start off this new year is looking at the clean slate that we have. Now, we brought a clean slate in a lot of ways. We brought Larry Schmidt back in. He's got his sidekick here, Pete Moss, who's going to dabble a little bit. But what a big thing we have. What a challenge we have with our Congress. And we've got some new guys that have the gavel. A lot of challenges they have. And I thought maybe it would be a good way to start off the new year is just look at some of those things. Like, what kind of challenges do we face? Larry, what do you want to say about that?
Okay, so a couple weeks here, we're going to have the Republican-controlled House get gavelled in. What was the number? 220, 221, somewhere there. So slim margin there, and then it's going to be 51-49 for the Democrats in the Senate. So there's look. I want to reiterate, this is the greatest country in the world. It will continue to be the greatest country in the world, but it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
Okay. The news cycle is going to likely be, the predictions are dangerous, but news cycle is going to be crazy. Okay. The Republicans are going to, launch a bunch of different investigations. They have the Twitter files from last year that shows federal government collusion with private entities on censorship and a whole host of other issues. They've got data. They're going to call witnesses on, COVID, Fauci. This stuff is going to happen, and the media is going to do what they do. We already know what the media modus operandi is, so they're gonna have a day with it. Unless you're talking about the case of the Twitter files, because last year CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, name them, New York Times, Washington Post, they didn't cover it.
Yeah,
hardly at all.
Like, what's that? Twitter files. What's that?
So, but they're going to have to cover it now.
Yeah.
Once Congress starts talking about it, they're going to have to cover it. I think now.
What a treasure trove of amazing things that we're going to find in that.
You've still got Ukraine going on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to move on from that. I'm just
Yeah,
just going to run down a list of things that are
Do it.
running in my head. You still got Ukraine and Russia going on. Okay, I predict Ukraine's going to ask for more money, more arms, more whatever they
Why
need.
wouldn't they?
They got it before. They're going to do it again. I predicted before on this very program that Russia's going to move to a frozen conflict. I still believe that to be true. And then China, that's kind of a wild card as far as foreign policy goes. You know, they still believe Taiwan. I don't see any reason for China to change what their status quo is in 2023.
I mean, even with all the problems they've had.
Yeah, they've had a lot of problems. They got stuff to deal with in their own nation. They've still got Hong Kong and Shanghai locked down in 2022. You know, COVID lockdowns were going on there in 2022. So I mean,
but they've been playing the long game for a long time, and I don't know what their timeline is with Taiwan, but I know they've been watching us and how we have been fumbling the ball here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah, no, they're taking diligent notes.
Yeah.
Copious notes, if you will.
Yeah, copious.
Besides that, I mean, my question is this. I mean, I think it's one of the things that we saw happen in 2022, which was they just didn't fix a lot of the voter fraud issues in this country. The only place where we saw somebody handle that was Governor DeSantis down in Florida, where there was a red wave. And my feeling is there was a red wave everywhere, but the fraud was able to sort of hold it back at bay. We were still able to take the 221 seats that you talked about, Larry. But is there going to be, with this new Republican Congress, is there going to be a push, and this is mainly a state issue, granted, but is there going to be some push, hopefully this year in 2023, where some of these governors and the government are going to try to fix our election system?
Okay, no.
Yeah,
that's the answer.
Yeah,
no, you're not going to see any movement on election. Why would they? They're not going to do anything about it. I mean, but I agree with the point of your question is if there's problem with elections, why are they not fixed? Why did it take? Let's see. It just so happens I wrote a piece that Havoc ran 21st November 2022 on what happened to the red wave in the midterms. So why does it take 2 weeks to figure out who won the Arizona governor's race?
Yeah.
Why does it take Nevada a week and a half to count votes in a state that's
1880.
got? Yeah, come on, man! Like,
Come on.
This is California was still counting votes in December last year. You know what I mean? Like this is ridiculous. Florida,
one more time.
Florida had DeSantis up by 20 by 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
What's it go? It's not who counts the votes.
Yeah, it's not who votes that counts; it who counts the votes, right? And that was famously attributed to Stalin. But I mean, there's a lot of truth in that, and I think, one of my frustrations with the Republican Party is the naivety.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just like it's there is no no one's going to jail for election crimes. Okay, so it's like it's almost like begging you to get in there and mess the system up because there's no penalty. And of course, we've had election fraud for as long as there's been elections. Anyone who thinks that there's no such thing as election fraud is just stupid.
No, yeah, there is fraud. A lot of conservative pundits out there say that the fraud only gets you, across the finish line. It doesn't win the election. I hold a personal belief that the left is a true minority in this country. I'm not talking 49%. I'm talking 17%. Like you have die-hard leftists, and then there's actually, a whole bunch of just people who always voted Democrat and a whole bunch of people that just like go, well, I'm not voting for Trump or whatever. You know what I mean? But the true diehard, like communist leftists, I think is a very, very small minority of people. and they just happen to have a really big microphone. Whether it's the media or positions of power or prominence or whatever the case. But so to your point, why would they fix the elections? The only way they're going to get them fixed, the only way the Republican Party is going to get them fixed in the states that need fixing, okay, is through the courts. That's the historical precedent so far. 2022 saw the state of Wisconsin Supreme Court overturn their COVID rules that said they could not do ballot harvesting. Basically, if you filled out a ballot, you had to take your ballot to the poll. Okay, if you had a mail-in ballot or whatever. So that got overturned. And Wisconsin was close. Ron Johnson won the Senate seat. Evers, the governor's a Democrat, but he only won by like half a point. So Wisconsin kind of got some work there done. Pennsylvania's not going to change. They have a Democrat-controlled state legislature. Arizona's not going to change. The governor was the Secretary of State who oversaw the election, the governor-elect of Arizona. She's not going to change the rules down there.
I mean, they've got Pennsylvania has a brain-dead guy as a senator.
They voted for a state legislature who was literally dead.
Yeah.
They elected a dead man.
Yeah. That's the old bumper sticker. When I'm dead, please don't have me vote Democrat.
To the extent of what the fraud is, I don't think we know.
Yeah. Well, I think we know it's multifaceted.
I think it makes it look.
They're smart. I mean, they hit at every level. You got the mules, right? I mean, that was the big movie. What was that movie?
2,000 Mules.
Yeah,
2,000
Mules,
Dinesh
right?
D'Souza, yeah.
So you have that whole network, where you pay people to, just deliver these ballots to these drop boxes all over the place. We've got the machine, right? The machines, which are, listen, guys, if it's a machine, it's got an algorithm. I'll be honest with you. I mean, anytime I'm voting in a machine, I mean, guys, to think the machines cannot be manipulated that's my point. You're naive. These things are hooked up to the internet. They have algorithms. They're programmable. Listen, all lefties love machines. Who wouldn't? If you're into fraud, you love a machine. Okay, it is much difficult. I have to pay a mule to freaking drop off ballots and stuff. I mean, that guy's expensive. You give me the machine, dude, I could freaking do his work in like nothing but a couple keystrokes. So it's multifaceted. It's not just the mules, but it's also the algorithms on the machines. It's all the little the old voter rolls that they never want to clean up, right? Where you have all these dead people and people that have moved away from old voter rolls that
they still have a use.
Yeah, that they can create ballots for all these people. So I think it's always been a multinational, multi-billion-dollar industry, and I was hoping that with the new Congress, maybe that would be something that would get addressed.
No, it's not. The Republican House may try to put something up, but it's going to be okay. So here's not to tail off into election fraud for too awful long, but it is a major issue. Yes. The 51-seat Senate is a problem. A 50-seat Senate was actually a lot more advantageous. That one seat is going to be an issue. So the other, again, predictions are dangerous, but the other kind of thing we need to look at is what the 51-person majority is going to do in the Senate, because you can get judges through at 51 votes. You don't need the vice president anymore. You have complete control over Senate committees. The one seat is going to be a problem for Republicans in into the 2024 election cycle. There's no way around it. Not just for judges, but I mean, at least before now, never put your faith in a guy like Joe Manchin or anything. He's still a Democrat, but at least you had Sinema or Manchin or somebody backing down on at least price tags of things. That you can lose both of those people. Well, no, you can lose one of them now and still get Harris to break the vote, the tie-breaking vote. So that one seat was big, and I don't know what we really need to figure out. Yes, voter fraud. Yes, all this stuff. And I wrote in my piece in November hey, Republicans need to figure out how to go into Pennsylvania, how to go into Arizona and win those states with the current makeup of election laws, because the election laws aren't going to change.
Hey, let me sneak in here. In light of Roe versus Wade being overturned last year, we failed to mention that on our year in review podcast last time we got together. But I think that didn't that set like a precedence for returning things that should be state owned?
It did, and I'll tie this right back into the election.
And that was an awesome thing, by the way. I want to make sure that that's known as. I believe that was a righteous thing. That was a good thing, not only for the states, but also because we say all the time, abortion is evil. It is.
Yeah, so
it's murdering the unborn. It's condemned by Scripture. It should be condemned by your conscience. So this is a righteous thing that was overturned. At least before beginning the battle to get this removed entirely. But it's back into the state's control.
Yeah. So. Okay.
But my whole point isn't that some type of precedence?
So
maybe we can start to see more of those types of things happening.
Yes. The point here is okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to tie it all together right here. So here, so we got to figure out is why people in Georgia split the ticket. They elected Camp in a landslide. They did not elect Herschel Walker. I think part of the reason is abortion played a bigger issue in the November midterms than we ever would have thought it did. Now moving into 2023, the Dobbs decision, which is what you're referring to, which overturned the Roe decision, which everybody, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the leftist Supreme Court justice that passed away, even she said it was bad. Roe v. Wade was bad law. Okay, everybody agrees it's bad law. Now, all of a sudden, it is the world melting down for all the leftists out there in the history of the world. Yeah. So, with that law being overturned, what that does is the ruling said abortion now applies to the 10th Amendment, which means anything not specifically talked about in the Constitution of the United States is thereby left up to the states, the state government. Okay, so that's what the 10th Amendment is. So, what that means for 2023 and the latter part of 2022 is this. It means that abortion is going to get a lot worse in some places. Okay. By the way, I will lose the midterms every single time for Roe v. Wade being overturned. I wrote that in my piece in November. I say it again. Roe v. Wade being overturned, never thought it would happen in my lifetime. And I'm younger than these two guys sitting across the table from me. And that's huge. That's a huge win. You take that over anything else, no matter what, hands down. Yeah.
I never thought I'd see that either.
So,
yeah, I almost say one other thing, Larry. I mean, I think it's a huge win, not only for someone who may be a Christian or other religious reasons. Okay, no matter what a religion is.
Yep.
I think it was a constitutional victory. I mean, let's just be honest. Yeah. Abortion is not in the Constitution.
Not there.
Sorry, it's just not. And so when you have a lot of these leftists like really concerned about it, it's just like, what are you concerned about? The only thing it did was just make it to where you at your state have to decide how you want to handle this. The people themselves are going to have a conversation and figure out what they want to do with this issue. But the leftists always like it when they get a person in a black robe to rule their way. I got it, okay? But this thing was really just returning the issue back to the people where it belongs, and that's why I celebrated that decision.
It goes back to the states. That's where it belongs. Because, like you said, one of the biggest lies that has ever been sold to the American people, especially suburban moms or whatever, women Democrat voters, is the right to choose abortion. Okay, it is not a right. It is not spelled out in the Constitution at all. It is not a violation of the woman's life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness to have a child. Okay, by definition of some women who view that as their specific purpose in life. So here's the deal with it is what's going to have to get figured out through 2023 is in California, in New York, in Illinois, in Minnesota, in name a couple other blue states, abortion's going to get a lot worse. You're going to see executive action probably. I would say you'd see executive action we already saw some of this in 2022 for federal government paying for people to fly to states for abortions. things of that nature. And you're going to see abortion get a lot better in some red states that we already seen, and you're going to see that kind of continue to move in that direction. So you're going to see some polarizing things, I think, surrounding abortion. But that doesn't mean you don't overturn Roe v. Wade and get this thing back to the states. My argument with abortion has always been, well, when does the Constitution apply to the baby? That's always been my kind of, when do we say that happens?
Is this an abolitionist type issue? Is this issue going to raise to the level of the anti-slavery movement of the 19th century?
Not in 2023, but it probably needs to. I mean, so this is my opinion now. Is it going to happen in 2023? No. But if you want to add a 26th Amendment protecting the life of a child, then that's the only way you solve it permanently. You know what I mean? Is that going to happen? No, probably not. I mean, I don't see anything like that. But then again, I mean, in 1815, nobody probably thought there was going to be a 14th Amendment. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I mean, if you could get a constitutional amendment passed saying all life is sacred from the moment of conception, then you end abortion in this country the date that thing goes into effect.
Yeah. Pete Moss, we've got a good ways into this discussion.
He's over here shamming.
Yeah, he is, man. I thought maybe we could
We got to pull him in.
Sorry, man. I get to rolling, dude.
That Joker's out there pulling security. We need to bring him in, man.
Yeah. He's the youngest guy. Maybe we could just kind of bring you in.
Yeah, no, kind of what I was thinking about in a question that I had. I wanted you to be able to make your points and not continue to interrupt you. In regards to getting Republicans into these blue states, like Pennsylvania, for example, do you think that in this last cycle, the Republican Party realized that they can't just throw anybody that they want on the ballot, thinking that they're going to win because Democrats are bad? Like, if that's the narrative that they're just going with, can I just throw anybody up there and they'll win? Do you think that was kind of the underwhelming part of the red wave that we really hoped would happen that didn't happen?
Yeah, that was definitely part of it at the later part of 2022 last year there. So I think, actually, Mitch McConnell said basically the same thing. Like, and so did Kevin McCarthy. I think said something along the lines of like, "Hey, we just need to not screw this up." But always count on Republicans to screw it up. Okay, they're gonna mess it up. But yeah, they thought they had good reason to think that there was no way they were losing seats anywhere. Now they still won the House. Okay, losing an extra Senate seat, whatever, this, that, or what. The Senate was tough math from the get-go. I never actually thought we were going to win the Senate. 50-50 was kind of where I was at. Anyway, the point being is, I think they thought they were going to win no matter what. Conservative pundits said the same thing because of how bad everything was, how bad the president was over the last... this month is the end of the second year of the Biden administration. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was January 21, he was sworn into office. Like, things aren't good, okay? So they had reason to be positive for their results. I just think they mismanaged some resources. I think they mismanaged some money. I think they didn't actually, like, the Democrats go out and vote for 6 weeks, and we just show up on Election Day because we're supposed to show up on Election Day and flood the zone. Well, like, in Philadelphia, when you lose Philadelphia 90-10, you're not going to win Pennsylvania. You don't have to win Philadelphia. You just have to get it 70-30. Now, how do you do that? I don't know exactly, but that's what they got to figure out. And then why people are splitting tickets in Georgia. We got to figure that out as well. But for some reason, they did.
Hey, since you were on the, we're talking heavy political front here. We talked a little bit about this last time we met last year. Now that it's 2023, what do we see as far as the impact? With the inflation that we've seen with the economy and all that, where do we see this all going?
So at the later part of 2022, the financial pundits were all talking about March being in a recession. Call me a traditionalist or a conservative or whatever. I call the definition of recession what it has been for years and years and years, which was 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. So basically 2 quarters in a row, no growth. As a matter of fact, retraction. Yeah. That happened in 2022, and everybody in the media was like, it's not a recession. Okay. So we were in a recession already. So predicting a recession in March is not a stretch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yes. So I think December's, I forget. Inflation rate was somewhere around the 7s. It's been steady, 8, 9%, 7% for all of 22. And there's no reason to suggest that number changes in the future. Theoretically, the Republican House should be able to control the continuing resolution and isolate some of this spending so that we don't have as much runaway government spending as we used to. But the Republicans do not have a history of curtailing federal budgets, which, by the way, we haven't operated on a budget in this country since 2008. So $31 trillion in debt. The debt service on that is that number that you can't do that math in your head. You need a calculator for that.
Big numbers.
Just the debt service on that. Social Security's deficit about $1 trillion. Medicaid's $1 trillion deficit. Defense spending's $835 billion for 2023. There's no data to support that inflation is going down.
Hey, and on that, we also talked about the Ukraine-Russian conflict, the war. How does that play into all this too? Can we say that has to have an impact?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have an impact. So,
that's another little piece.
Are the Republicans going to give the executive branch money to fund arms and lethal aid for Ukraine in 2023, or are they going to try to make a political point and not fund it? The other thing to think about is energy's got to come from somewhere. The strategic oil supply or strategic petroleum reserve in September or October of 22 was somewhere around 400 million barrels. And they drained at least another 30, 40, 50 million out of there before the end of the year. It's the lowest level since the 1980s.
That's why we had those $2.80 gallon.
OPEC, everybody
sales.
forgets this. OPEC said last year they're not going to increase drilling. We're certainly not going to increase any sort of oil exploration or drilling or export.
So where I'm going with that is, the question with Ukraine.
So it all plays into
kind
Ukraine
of big,
as well.
But with this new guys with the gavel, can we expect to see some changes in our fuel and how we operate with our fuel? Are we still going to just go with the status quo, the way it's always been, or can we maybe anticipate some changes with that?
I'm a natural optimist, and I know I'm killing the mood with everybody listening and the guys in the room. But I have no data to support, no historical precedent to support the idea that the Republicans are going to get in there with power and all of a sudden make it better. I can't stand leftists. I am a conservative through and through, if you haven't figured out. And I love this country to death. I want us to succeed on it, but I don't have any data to support any improvement.
Well, let me ask you this, Larry, because this is you kind of talked about things are going to get worse before they get better.
Yes, but the future. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, and I think we're on the cusp of something here because we talked about the fact that the Supreme Court sort of righted itself and said, "Hey, this is a state issue." We talked about the things that some of these states are doing. Okay, like Florida and some other places. Some states are going one direction. Some states are going other directions. Right. The economic situation, the out-of-control spending, the opinions on abortion, okay, from state to state. What I see is more of a division between sort of the ideologies of the states. And I'm wondering if we're going to start seeing in 2023 maybe some of these states reassert their sovereignty and trying to protect their state citizens a little bit, trying to push back a little bit on some of the damage of the federal government and ineptitude, okay, things that they're supposed to be handling and just aren't. So the states are going to have to kind of rise to the occasion, rise to the challenge. Are we going to see sort of a trend in 2023 where there's really going to start becoming a lot more disparity between, say, a New York or a California and a place like Texas and Florida or wherever you pick? I mean, just a big difference where people might have to start thinking about where they want to live in the future.
Yeah, so the precedent I'm thinking of, kind of off the top of my head here, is the California migration. Okay, so people have been moving out of California in droves for years now.
Yeah. And big numbers.
And big number, and people have moved out of New York into the South, especially Florida, for years now.
Make America California.
Well, it does not appear that those voters took their ideology with them.
Yeah, I'm being harsh,
because
but
Beto lost by
people like us that just got
10
out
points,
of there,
15
we've had enough. Yeah,
Yeah. I think they're literally moving because they're just done.
yeah.
Who can blame them? But Florida, I mean, DeSantis, that's record. He won Miami-Dade County in November. You know what I mean? Like, he flipped Hispanic vote. He won by 21 points.
People are waking up.
Yeah. So, I mean, is there a way that states will protect their own side? I mean, yes, there is precedent for this. There's data to support this as well. At the end of 23, Governor DeSantis down there in Florida and his Surgeon General started working on basically if they're going to figure out if they're going to charge people for criminally for COVID thing. They're conducting their investigation. I think you'll see some of that come out in 2023. I don't know because I had high hopes years ago on the Durham report that never came to anything. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens with it. But DeSantis is working some stuff. Abbott tweeted during his campaign at the end of last year that he was going to declare an invasion and then basically usurp the federal government with the border situation in Texas. He needs about $4 billion to do the wall, the border wall for Texas. If Christy Lake would have won in Arizona, I think you would have seen a lot done on the border. She did not win, so I think you'll see nothing done in Arizona. And then you see the contrast. Newsom is just asking for money. Not for a wall or anything, but for social services.
Here's my failed programs. Let me pass the hat. Yeah, there you go. Just keep bailing me out.
Government. Yeah. At the end of December 20, I'm going to tie this back into Ram. They were talking about 23 government spending, federal government spending at $1.7 trillion. All the COVID stuff was baked into that budget. Not a budget, continuing resolution.
Those $1 million crappers in Frisco.
So, I mean, nothing. They haven't gone down in any sort of spending, and there's no reason to think they would. But are the states going to, say no to federal money? I doubt that. And normally federal money is tied to things. So I think you'll see some states, on some issues, kind of reinforcing their own sovereignty as far as that goes. But it's going to be very specific issues. It's not going to be like highway money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, this is where I think we're coming back around to what I was talking about with the Roe v. Wade thing and how that was good. But I think we're going to see, I agree with you, we're going to see more things along coming down the pike that are related to the state's rights and state sovereignty, which I think are good things. And again, I'm also wishful thinking because I think the people that went to the red states, they did it for a reason. And I see we have a voter base, okay, that's kind of woke up, and they've seen the light of 2 years plus their failed policies, and people don't like what they're seeing.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at 23 being a good year as far as things, people coming out and and seeing more things down the pike. I mean, we've kind of gone around everywhere on this, but what is something like a big thing this year? You're hopeful. I'm hopeful a lot of things, but what do you see that's hopeful this year politically that could break free and it could make things better for America? I mean, if I could do that. That's a big one.
Okay.
I mean, you're not Nostradamus, okay? And, we don't
Predictions
want to
are
make
rough.
predictions are very scary.
What I would like to see is the Republican Party actually come out of its shell and lead.
Yeah.
It hasn't done it for decades, and it needs to. Okay, the Republican Party is very close to losing a good portion of its base.
Yeah.
And they need to figure out how to take the power that they were given from the American voter in the House of Representatives and turn that into results. When there's,
Hey,
they're not going to have much.
If I could just exfoliate myself just for a second and be the idiot in the room. But I was just talking to my wife about this the other day. That I said, I'm just tired of I'm tired of these two parties, and it looks like nobody's representing us. And I'm like, hey, look, how about somebody do their job that's an elected official and represent the American people and the ideals that we have? And I would like to see that too. I'd like to see a little bit more backbone. I'd like to see people actually be motivated by things other than money.
Yeah.
And power.
Yeah.
And so that would be really good. Because I don't like I know that's not a good, political parties have to exist. I know that our founding fathers said two parties are going to be bad. Gosh, they were right. But it is the nature of the beast.
I think
But yeah.
you can add to that. Like, yes, I want to see the Republican, the deck stacked against them. They've got a media apparatus totally aligned against them. Now that Musk owns Twitter, they're going to have something, and they've got the Twitter files for their investigations.
Okay.
So they've got some stuff. Don't put too much trust in Elon Musk. The guy is literally building rocket ships to take us all to Mars because he thinks the planet is going to end. Okay, but
He might be right, and we might all be crazy.
But I think you can also see in 23. I know I kind of laid this thing out like it's going to be a pretty
I think it's
chill
gonna be a
year,
good
but
year.
I think it's going to be actually a pretty wild year, to be completely honest with you, because I think
It'll be very tumultuous.
I think you're going to
right.
see some executive action out of the administration there that is going to be pretty wild. I don't know what exactly, but I think it's just going to be like, whoa, okay, we didn't think we would ever get here, and now here we are.
I want to hear from our young guy.
Yeah.
Because I'm really,
Oh,
we're over the hill. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the deal. I'm curious, like, what does this up and coming
We're old
generation?
and tired.
Where do you guys see? What do you think about this country? Where do you think it's going? What do you? Obviously, we screwed it up, okay, and our parents and our
the
grandparents.
boomers are to blame for all this. By the way,
We are
Absolutely.
okay. I'm a Gen X or whatever they call it.
we're Gen X.
After the baby
okay,
boomers.
boomers and Gen X, both of you are to blame for this.
And we are.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, okay, what is this younger generation like? How are they going to right this ship? What do they think about this? I mean, is this thing is it have we screwed the pooch? Is it savable? Whatever. Is it salvageable? Whatever.
To get in, just to go back to Pete's point about candidate quality from the last midterms, I think the 23, you might see some rock stars come out from the right side of the political aisle. We'll see. I don't know who it's going to be, but we'll see.
Yeah, but to answer your question, like, I feel like I'm kind of an old soul, like all of the people I like hanging around with are guys like yourselves. Because, even when I was in college, like, I was an outcast, man. Like, and that's one thing that I think really screwed the pooch, if you will, is just allowing the leftist ideologies to reign supreme in the education centers, like, around the country. It's absurd.
Single point failure.
Yeah.
Boom.
It's absolutely absurd. And just a quick anecdote from me, like, I did very well. I was one of the top 2 in my class for my major, but because of my political beliefs, a class that I had during the week, it was a 1-hour class a week, and it was just It was called Self and Community, but it was more indoctrination and bullshit. You would sit down and they would tell you you're a horrible person for being white. You're a horrible person for being a man. Men are no longer, men should be submissive. Yeah. These are all points that I was told to. Yeah. And I would be marked down on my assignments. I was in the Honor Society, and even though I would write very well-written papers with 8+ sources, I would never get higher than 50%. Mm-hmm. So they're literally driving people of conservative backgrounds out of education around the country because they don't want them there.
That's true, and the snapback is starting on that. It started in 2022.
That's true.
We saw a lot of school boards flip. Okay, universities, little bit different situation. But yeah, no,
people are waking up.
Perfectly valid point. Yeah. It's a rough situation out there, and it's going to be a tumultuous 2023.
I've got a question kind of for the table here. Looking at the quality of people, like the lack of work ethic, especially in my generation. I mean, I know people who can't go 20 minutes without looking at their phone. Mm-hmm. I know people, there's videos in that, Chinese indoctrination app of TikTok that will post videos of themselves crying because they're one person short at Starbucks. They're crying, I'm about to go home, I can't handle this. Do you think that has something to do with the state of the country as it is now?
Let me jump in there, right? So I think something I saw that really was very provocative. You've heard of Mike Rowe, Dirty Jobs, Mike Rowe, right? Well, he came on Fox and Friends, and he said that, and his numbers are right, roughly 7 million able-bodied men, young men, are sitting out of the workforce. And I think those are those types of guys crying, right, at Starbucks or whatever. And he mentioned this, stuff like skilled trades, carpentry, electricians, plumbers, they are leaving the workforce. They're just aging out. Mm-hmm. And 5 are leaving, but only 2 are coming back in. Now, just throw this in the pot of just stuff. And I think part of that is they're, what you're saying. That's part of the problem. And what do you think about that? That's sad.
You're driving conservatives out of colleges, and you're also promoting college to a point where if you don't go, your life is over, and you're not promoting these trade schools, which I think, if you call me out on it, if you think I'm wrong, but I think it was Chuck Schumer basically outlined what population collapse would be. And he's saying, oh, no, we know all these illegal immigrants are coming in, and we know they're just flooding the border, but we have too few people to fill these labor jobs. So we actually need them now. Do you think that was calculated as well, or just more coincidental, if you will?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a playbook out there. We're not privy to it.
There are no coincidences.
There are
But we joke about it. There really is a playbook. It's a lefty playbook. Yeah. That's part of it.
The people out of the workforce are out of the workforce for whatever reason. I don't know why. They can't handle filling up my cafe lattes. I don't shop at Starbucks, but anyway, there was incentives to stay home and not work. There are still incentives to stay home and not work. There are depending on what state you're in, there's additional incentives. There's a lot going on that's, more than just, I don't want to be at work. There's some incentives to stay home as well. Yes, people who are 18 need to just go out and build a fence and rake leaves. They get satisfaction from completing work. It gives them dignity. They need to get out of their house. There's dignity there.
Get out and sweat. Come on.
Parents,
go get dirty.
Parents need to love their children and tell them, what they need to do, and not, I'm a 12-year-old boy, but I'm a girl now. Okay, here's your puberty blockers. That's not love. That's okay. You're gonna go
sanity.
Come on. We need to. Yes, there needs to. This thing is gonna swing back the other way. We just don't know when. So that's what I mean when the future is actually moving.
I hope we make strides this year.
But by design, okay. Hey, look, Klaus Schwab, World Economic Forum, Great Reset.
It's a real thing.
Well published, well researched deal out there. We don't have time to get into it right now, but that's something worth looking into on some of the things happening in Davos and in Washington and stuff like that. So if you have time, just go Google it. You know, there's also no reason for people, the younger generation especially, or older, or anybody. You can go to Amazon, you know, and pull up a docuseries, a documentary about whatever you want to learn about. You can go on YouTube and learn how to fix a car. Like, it's, you know, you're not going to get a certification from YouTube, but you know what I mean? There's things you can do to have dignity and respect and get something done other than, you know, Facebook. And speaking of social media and everything, you know, African American suicide was up 52% in 2022.
Wow.
Yeah, 52%. They're saying adolescent suicide's up 30, I think is what it was. And they're tying a lot of this back to, you know, people don't have real friends anymore, right?
Yeah.
I'm not on social media, so I don't give a rip. I think people should just get off.
Absolutely.
You know, but
less of that and more making real friends and getting your hands dirty, get out and running. But
I think you might see some, I don't know, you'll probably see how that stuff gets reported when you look at 2023 is, you know, educators, right? You know, they'll say like, hey, we need innovative and bold solutions for the child anxiety, depression, and suicide problem. They'll say stuff like that, which translation to government means give me more money. Let me hire more psychotherapists. That's not the solution. The solution is, if I get into Paul's world, the solution is, if you want a new trick, read an old book. Okay? And the best book of all time is also the oldest book of all time. It's called the Bible. There's a lot of real good wisdom in there. And it would be good for some of us younger folks to get back into that book.
very nice. I couldn't have said it better, my friends. Well, I think there's a lot of challenges we have for 2023. And, you know, we don't have a crystal ball. No, neither do we want to look into one. But, you know, we started off with Alexis de Tocqueville, and I want to go back to him. I want to give you the full quote here. I think we can leave off on a good note. So he wrote in his book, Democracy in America, and this is what he said of the United States. I sought for the greatness and genius of America in her commodious harbors and her ample rivers, and it was not there. I sought for the greatness and genius of America in her fertile fields and boundless forests, and it was not there. I sought for the greatness and genius of America in her rich mines and her vast world commerce, and it was not there. I sought for the greatness and genius of America in her public school system and her institutions of learning, and it was not there. I will refrain from comment. I sought for the greatness and genius of America in her democratic Congress and her matchless Constitution, and it was not there. Not until I went into the churches of America and heard her pulpits flame with righteousness did I understand the secret of her genius and power. America is great because she is good, and if America ceases to be good, she will cease to be great. My friends, may 2023 be an awesome year. God bless you. God bless America.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Pinelander Podcast. If you enjoy our unique content, please consider supporting our sponsors. SOF News, providing special operations news from around the world. It's where Paul and I go to keep abreast of what's going on within the SOF community. Check them out at sof.news. Blacksmith Publishing, been serving the warrior class since 2013. They have great titles written for warriors, by warriors. If you're looking for excellent reference material or just want to unwind with a great novel, be sure to check out the bookstore located at blacksmithpublishing.com. And if you're looking for some cool Pinelander apparel, head on over to the general store located at pinelandergeneralstore.com. That's all one word, pinelandergeneralstore.com. Have a great selection of shirts, hats, jackets, sweaters, stickers, patches, artwork, and a whole lot more. Check out the store at pinelandergeneralstore.com. If you're interested in helping develop our country's next generation of warriors, please consider donating to the American Agoge Project. The mission of the project is to foster an environment producing able-bodied citizen warrior men of fine character. And we'll be officially launching the project in 2023 in celebration of Blacksmith Publishing's 10th anniversary. Until our next meeting, stay mentally and tactically smart, physically and spiritually strong, and socially astute. To each other we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. May God continue to bless Pineland.